Good evening. I'm Katerina Georgieva. This is CBC Windsor News. Thanks for joining us. We begin with breaking news. Nearly 40 employees have been laid off by the City of Windsor this week. QP Local 82 confirmed the layoffs to the CBC. Its president, Rob Collodi, says the positions were eliminated because an agreement couldn't be reached on job protection. The positions included caretaker staff that worked at arenas and community centers. The union wanted a memorandum of understanding that would prevent the city from eliminating full-time permanent positions while seasonal employees are employed. The president says they came close to an agreement, but after 19 months of negotiations, a deal could not be reached. But one could eventually be made to bring those jobs back. He says people will likely notice changes at community centers and arenas.
Yeah, I think that the garbages are not obviously getting picked up as quickly. The floors are not being mopped or swept as frequently as otherwise would have been. There's just no way for 8 full-time people to get the work of, if you added the 38 in, almost 46 people now. There's no way for that amount of people to get that same work done. So it's going to be noticeable.
A spokesperson for the city declined to comment when asked for details about the job losses. In other local news, the sexual assault trial of a Windsor cop continued today, with the defense targeting the complainant's memory. Just a warning that some of the details are upsetting. Jason Vio reports from court.
During day 2 of the sexual assault trial against a Windsor police officer, the defense focused on questioning the complainant about things that she could not remember around the time of the alleged assaults. Now, Staff Sergeant Ken Price is on trial right now, facing 4 counts of sexual assault. Those instances were alleged to have occurred between 2011 and 2015. Now, on Tuesday, the complainant, whose identity is protected by a publication ban, was cross-examined by defense lawyer Dan Scott. He repeatedly asked her questions about not recalling exact dates for the alleged incidents of sexual assault. Scott asked her about a note-taking course she would have taken as a police employee and why none of the alleged sexual assaults were documented in her work notepad. The complainant testified she didn't write those things down because it was too triggering for her. On Monday, she testified that Price pinned her down on a couch at work and dry humped her in 2012. On Tuesday, she said that happened in April of 2011. The complainant said as a victim, she's not going to remember exact dates, but did reiterate multiple times that the alleged sexual assaults did occur between 2011 and 2015. Now, the trial is set to resume on Wednesday morning. Jason Vio, CBC News, Windsor.
If you're looking for a place to cool off this summer, Lake Erie may not be your best bet. It has been heating up quickly, and in some places, the surface temperatures in the western basin of the lake are over 30 degrees Celsius. Windsor Morning's Amy Dodge spoke with the director of Windsor's Great Lakes Institute for Environmental Research to learn more.
It's not record-breaking, but certainly impressive, especially considering the cool spring we had. If we go back even to mid-June, not that long ago, we were running probably 2 degrees Celsius below the 30-year average of temperatures in Lake Erie. And now we're 2.5 degrees Celsius above that. So that fast.
Yeah, any idea why it heated up so fast?
Well, we've all experienced these high temperatures we've had here for the past few weeks. And I think that's all it takes is sustained hot weather, and in a shallow lake basin. We're likely to see more blooms when the weather is warmer. We also need nutrients, and we had a relatively dry spring, which meant fewer nutrients washing into the western basin, meaning less fuel for these algal blooms.
Let's talk a little bit more about the fish and the water life. Are they affected at all by changing temperatures like this?
I mean, at a certain point, they could be. All organisms will have temperature optima. They'll have thresholds beyond which they don't function well. One concern would be dissolved oxygen. Warm water carries less oxygen. And so, once you hit 30 degrees Celsius, you're actually at rather low levels of oxygen in the water. And so I would be a little bit more concerned if we're surpassing that 30 degrees.
And the fish just go further down.
They at least they do have what we call thermal refugia, where they can actually escape to.
And with that, we bring in Colette Kennedy for our first look at weather. Colette, with all that heat, I'm not really surprised to hear that the lakes are also being impacted.
Yeah, and we all need that place to escape, right? When we get into that very hot weather. We're getting a bit of a reprieve right now, somewhat more comfortable, humidity down a little bit, and a pretty good evening on our hands too. Evening and most of the overnight, but some of this energy that's back to the west of us, what's left of that is going to kind of come in towards the early morning hours, and so we'll put a chance tomorrow early morning for some showers, and then bubbling up the risk of some afternoon showers and thunderstorms. Pretty widespread, though. I'll have more details on that coming up.
Sounds good. Thanks, Colette. We now turn to U.S. President Donald Trump's ongoing tariff war with Canada. The president now says that he will impose a 50% tax on imported copper, adding to the growing list of punishing tariffs causing economic uncertainty in Canada and around the world. Now, details are still limited, but Canada does export billions of dollars worth of copper to the U.S. A Windsor sheet metal company is reacting to this new blow, which piles on to the sting of steel tariffs.
If there are tariffs on the finished product of copper, I am concerned that that tariff will affect us producing materials, ornaments, copper eave straw, supplying them to Michigan. We're in Windsor, and how that's going to affect our price point.
Meanwhile, RJ Steel and Copper's work appears in our next story, a new cross for St. John's Church in Sandwich Town. The previous wooden cross had been bent over after a tornado passed through the area. But as Mike Evans shows us, 2 years later, it's being replaced with a copper one.
A couple of years ago, there was a storm that came through. What happened was it bent the cross. It was a very old cross when we got up to it. So we had to rent a big lift, talking 85, 90 feet. That was a job in itself, getting up there to assess the damage. The cross was broken inside the steeple, so there was a safety issue there. So we removed the cross, and then we spoke with the parish about how to deal with this situation. So the new cross has been hoisted to the top. That was probably the second hardest part of this job, is getting a cross that it may look small from the ground, but that cross is an 8-foot cross, weighs approximately 150 pounds. It's made of copper. The difficult issue with this is mounting it properly without needing to get inside the steeple, which is impossible at that point anyway. So everything has to be done on the outside with proper stainless fasteners, anchors, through bolts. We want this cross to last another 150 years. I believe last time we spoke was two and a half years ago when that storm went through. It has been a long time coming. Today is nerve-wracking on one hand because of the heights. It's not that we do this every single day. We're not roofers. However, it's very satisfying that the church will be able to get their cross back. The scaffolding will be coming down, and then it'll be a nice feature for Sandwich Town.
In other national news, RCMP say active members of the Canadian Armed Forces are facing terrorism-related charges. Investigators allege that 4 men attempted to form an anti-government militia in Quebec. 2 of the suspects are active military. As Gloria Henriquez reports, the arrests come amid increasing concern about radicalism within the ranks.
Assault rifles were among the multiple firearms found by the RCMP, along with 16 explosive devices, military gear, and 11,000 rounds of ammunition. They were all things police say were part of a plot to take over a piece of land in Quebec City by force. 4 Quebec men have been arrested. 2 of them are active members of the Canadian Armed Forces. The Mounties say 3 of them were taking actions to facilitate terrorism activity.
We can think of it as getting ready and getting everything in place in order to commit the terrorist activity.
Abel says the men were planning to create an anti-government militia. She says the suspects conducted various military-style training and navigation exercises.
Survival in the woods, shooting, anything that the army would train for, then it's something that they worked on also.
One of the men allegedly created and administered an Instagram account to recruit new militia members. Abel says it was all motivated by ideology.
Being anti-government, being anti-authority, and then people might reach into racism, misogyny, anything else gender related, and then they create their own set of beliefs.
The accused appear in court in Quebec City. Marc-Aurèle Chabot, Simon Angers-Odette, Raphaël Lagacé have been charged with facilitating a terrorist activity, which carries a maximum sentence of 14 years in prison. The fourth man, Matthew Forbes, faces charges of possession of firearms, prohibited devices and explosives, and possession of controlled items. He also faces charges related to the Explosives Act and Defense Production Act, which regulates access to military supplies.
That would have occurred between June of 2021 and January of 2024 for acts that would have occurred in Quebec and in Ontario.
CBC has reviewed the social media profile of Raphaël Lagacé, who often appears in pictures wearing military gear and carrying firearms. CBC News spoke to a colleague of Marc-Aurèle Chabot, who confirmed that last summer he was serving as a corporal with the Vandus based out of Valcartier. The colleague expressed concern about comments that Chabot made targeting the federal government and then Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. He described those comments as, quote, almost treasonous. CBC is agreeing to conceal his identity because he is not authorized to speak on military matters. The suspects will be back in court in Quebec City on July 14. Gloria Enriquez, CBC News, Montreal.
The tragedy of the Texas floods is reminding the world of the dangers of too much rain. But too little rain also has serious consequences. Several communities in Saskatchewan are currently under a state of emergency. As Alexander Silberman shows us, severe drought is putting farmers' livelihoods at risk.
Looking out at her bone-dry fields, Corrine Gibson is taking drastic measures to keep her cattle fed.
Nothing even started, nothing grew.
With historic drought, killing crops normally turned into hay bales.
This spring has been the worst drought that we've lived through in our 33 years.
Pastures have dried up, leaving ranchers forced to buy feed elsewhere or sell their livestock. Gibson moved some of her cattle to greener land, 300 kilometers away.
We're talking hundreds and hundreds of thousands, if not closer to 1 million for us to replace all of that feed that we would normally produce ourselves.
4 Saskatchewan municipalities have now declared local states of emergency. In response, the province is lowering the threshold to claim crop insurance. The forecast for the prairies shows a hotter than usual summer with uncertain levels of rainfall, and meteorologists say the lack of moisture is a trend.
The longer a drought goes on, the more likely it is to stay dry because the ground is just getting drier and drier throughout.
As persistent drought becomes a growing threat to farmers' livelihoods, some are finding solutions, rotating pastures and planting crops that better absorb water.
That has saved our bacon this year. Even with good adaptation, these droughts are pretty tough things.
Amid the dirt and dust, Clayton Gibson is desperate for rain to salvage his fields.
If we don't get a lot of moisture this fall, I'm not sure we should plant a crop next spring.
Tough choice, but a new reality for many, as some ranchers question how many dry seasons lie ahead. Alexander Silberman, CBC News, Regina.
Before break, we want to show you something fun. A strong marriage is about having each other's back and overcoming obstacles together. This wife-carrying contest in Finland gives falling head over heels a whole new meaning. Couples race through a course filled with obstacles, including water and sand, and the person designated as husband had to carry their partner to the finish line. An American couple won the main race, and this is the first time in the event's history that a separate race was held for female couples. We will be right back after the break. Welcome back. Hundreds of searchers are digging through the banks of the Guadalupe River in Texas. It's been 5 days since a flash flood tore through the area, carrying more than 100 people away to their deaths. The state's governor says at least 161 people are still missing. Katie Nicholson is in the flood area with the latest.
There's been a steady line through Ingram's main road. Searchers, emergency response vehicles, cleanup, and utility vehicles. Same here on the river. Lots of people out searching and doing more cleanup, while above, helicopters hover throughout parts of the river looking for the missing. There are hundreds of search crews up and down the Guadalupe River, some from out of state, places like Mexico and Florida. This work made all the more difficult by how the violent torrents of water slammed everything in its path up and over into the riverbanks. Recovery of the missing through massive piles of debris, a delicate task.
These large piles can be very obstructive, and to get deep into these piles, it's very hazardous, and those specialized teams have to go in there layer by layer because our first responders, also the safety of them is concerned. So it's extremely treacherous, time-consuming, it's dirty work, the water's still there. So we're having to go layer by layer, peeling these off to make those recoveries.
Then there are the recovery efforts of those who lost everything they own, like Henry Daigle. He barely escaped the rising waters in his RV park on Friday morning. Police told him he had to leave. He grabbed a few things and said within 60 seconds, the water was suddenly up to his knees.
The water is actually lifting my truck up a little bit. I'm kind of bobbing my way out. On the road, getting traction, but I'm bobbing a little bit. And I realized just how close, I came to getting swept up in that current myself. Cop saved my life, really. If that trailer had been hooked up, which was 5 minutes later, no way I would have made it out of here. I would have been in the drink going downriver. They've been pulling me out today.
Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Ingram, Texas.
Flooding is Canada's most common natural disaster. It is dangerous and it is costly. As Shayna Luck explains, experts say there is a lot of work to be done to mitigate the risks.
This widespread flooding in Nova Scotia in 2023 claimed the lives of 4 people and caused hundreds of millions of dollars in damage. The Sackville River, one of many that flooded. But as of this year, people who live along it can look to updated flood mapping to understand more about the risks.
Hooray! Hooray! Long overdue.
Walter Regan has been advocating for floodplain mapping and zoning for this river for 37 years.
We have baby seats for children. We have seat belts. The zoning, floodplain zoning, is a public protection measure that's cost effective and long overdue.
Floodplain zoning could prohibit new building in areas prone to flooding, but zoning and mapping is incomplete for most rivers in Canada.
On average, across Canada, flooders maps are 20 to 25 years out of date.
Maps are the first step towards keeping people safe from flooding. Experts say investing in diverting the water and issuing warnings come next.
The thing about extreme events is even the morning of, you may not be able to predict the severity of that extreme event.
That includes disasters like the 2013 Alberta flooding, which displaced tens of thousands of people, and Toronto flooding last year that clogged the subway and a major highway. Canada doesn't have a national early warning system for flash floods. Rivers are provincial jurisdiction, and each province handles alerts differently, but they all face a similar challenge.
Sadly, it probably will get worse in the future. We need to adjust the way we live. We need to prepare for something big in every region.
Walter Regan is thinking now of hundreds of other rivers in his home province. He urges decision makers to move quickly to lessen the risks.
They say in the tree world, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is now.
He believes it could save money and save lives. Shayna Luck, CBC News, Halifax.
Colette Kennedy will be back with us after the break with more of your weather forecast. Stay with us. Colette Kennedy is back with us now for more on weather. Colette, how's it looking out there?
You know, pretty good. I have to say this evening is looking like it's going to be quite a nice one. We've got some energy that's to the west of us, and it's pushing eastward, but it's going to take some time to get here. So I think it won't be till well overnight, the early morning hours, before we'd even get a chance for getting into some wet weather. And it's pretty comfortable because the humidity is down. I mean, there's still a humidex value. I'll show you in just a second here, but not up there at 40 where it has been. So Sarnia at 24, Chatham-Kent 25, Windsor, the current temperature 28, still a lot of sunshine. There's the humidex. So, hey, it's only 29 at Sarnia. We've got low 30s for Chatham-Kent. We'll call it low 30s for Windsor. That's going to start creeping up tomorrow. We'll kind of be back around 35, perhaps even 36. Not much of a breeze to speak of. The winds are, the direction is interesting that it is coming from the north as we've had that front that pushed through, but they're relatively light in nature. So here's just a little bit of that activity that's well to the west of us, much more if I push back even further west. And so it's some of this energy that will eventually keep moving eastward, but also dying out. So that's why in the early morning hours tomorrow morning, we could have a few light showers. That's just sort of the remnants coming through. So by the time it would reach Windsor, say not till 5, 6 a.m. So know that if you're going to be heading out the door really early tomorrow. But then that energy is still going to be there. So as we get some daytime heating, what we'll find is things will start to bubble back up along that boundary. So into the afternoon, some showers, some thunderstorms here and there, not a widespread soaking rain. Not everyone's going to experience it, but head out the door, grab your umbrella in case you're going to need it later in the day. Bit of cloud cover, even a patchy fog possible early on Thursday, and then we'll be clearing back out once again. Your overnight temperatures tonight should be pretty comfortable because the humidity is down, maybe comfortable enough to just kind of crack the windows and enjoy your sleep as those temperatures drop off towards 20 for the low for Windsor, down to 18 for Sarnia, and then tomorrow, there we go, up to 28. Feeling like about 35, okay? And quite a bit of cloud cover even in the areas where you don't get the rainfall or the benefit of it. So Thursday, partly cloudy, 29. As we head towards the weekend, we start to warm up. You see that the 30s come back into the picture, but know that the other thing that happens as we get towards the weekend, Katarina, is we'll see a spike with that humidity once again.
Of course, the up and down.
There you go.
Thanks so much, Colette. Thanks everyone for watching. See you tomorrow.
Good night.